Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.
Alright guys, welcome to my live stream. I am Joshua Kemble. I am working on some freelance illustrations. So what I'm going to work on today is drawing a robot bursting out of an Excel sheet. So this is for a client where initially I had drawn a Python bursting out of an Excel sheet because I guess the book is about Python. And I think... I think the client luckily came to their senses and kind of realized that like a python, like a snake, like bursting out of a page isn't the most exciting thing. And so now we're going to draw their robot, which is like a vintage 1950s robot kind of busting through an Excel sheet. So that should be pretty fun. Things have been pretty busy here in a fun way. A lot of things going on, a lot of things with planning school for teaching. I teach art classes, so that's pretty time consuming. And then on top of that, going to school, going to college. So it's been a lot of like school and school on top of school kind of stuff. And so it's fun to have a moment. And then last weekend, I got like super sick. And so I am playing catch up now on a lot of projects, including this freelance project. I have about two more freelance projects after this that I have to rough out. All we have to do today are roughs, but I tend to do pretty polished roughs for this client. But anyhow, needless to say, let's move forward. Kind of get this stuff situated. I'm pulling up files right now just so that before I kind of show the screen and stuff, so that we're in good standing when we get into live streaming. So yeah, so I feel like the world has gotten kind of wild since I last streamed. I feel extremely bad for my. I know we have quite a few Canadian members that like kind of watch my live streams and stuff, and to those I do apologize for the US being ridiculous sometimes. Apparently we're just levying tariffs at like every single person on the planet, which does not make me feel proud to be an American in the slightest. Okay, anyhow, yeah, so there's like a lot of wild stuff just kind of occurring in the world, and it's a little disconcerting, honestly. But the way I've been kind of processing all that stuff that's been going on, the wild stuff, the verging on a totalitarian regime, like burgeoning, like bubbling of the loss of democracy, with that in the background, I've been really thankful that I'm a creative because, man, drawing stuff is great. It's a nice escape from the woes of the world. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, If you guys are tuning in though, and you're longtime followers, I now wear glasses. That's what time does apparently. Let's see. Okay, let's get into drawing some stuff. That's why we're here. We're not here to hear me jargon and blab about stuff. We're here to see me draw. I gotta line up a couple things though. I had. Where are they? I had a few files to kind of have open. That'll be very useful. Okay, there we go. We got one of them. That's good. And then I've got another that I wanted to get as well. Just to kind of... Okay. So we're doing a buff version of our retro robot. And I do need probably... Let me pull up a previous version of this guy. Just so I can kind of remember. I might have him off screen, but... I've had to draw this robot like a million times, and the only thing about him that can be a little... he's not hard to draw. He's actually super fun to draw. But, there we go. Okay. I think I've got everything lined up. I think I got my robot. I've got, okay, I've got a background with just a generic Excel spreadsheet kind of table in the background. And I think we're ready to rock. So we'll see how that goes. If you're watching this on YouTube too, you might notice I have a goal set up in the chats. Trying it out. I don't know. You can kind of set a goal for a goal for super chats, that kind of thing. And I set up a goal. So we'll see. The goal's like $5. It's really small, but if we hit that $5 mark, I'll live stream for another half hour. So an hour into this, I'm hoping to hit $5, and then I will live stream for another half hour. I might live stream for another half hour anyway, if you guys are familiar, but I wanted to try out the goal setting thing and see if it actually works and if we hit it. Here we go. I'm gonna move this guy. Where's my third cam? I'm going to move the third camera down here so it's out of the way, so that we can start sketching this out. So what I want is to draw our No Starch, that's the client, is No Starch Press, the No Starch Retro Robot bursting out of this Excel table. And I'm going to use... Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop to kind of make that happen. And I think I can delete a lot of these layers because these are just all like roughs from like a million roughs. Sometimes I'll use, like in this case, since I have the same template for the book cover for the client, I'll often kind of use the same file and just kind of copy it. Copy the file and then use that for the next rough, and copy the file and use that for the next. So I'll end up with this pile of layers that I don't actually need. All right, we're all cleaned up. We're ready to go. How are you guys doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you're dealing with the madness out there. Okay. All right, so let's start sketching out our robot, and then maybe I'll just blab about stuff. Yeah, last year, I think it was last year now. It's been a while. It's at least maybe half a year ago. The Supreme Court kind of made this ruling, right? Where, here we go. We're going to draw a robot's head. Just kind of starting with big shapes, okay? Starting with big shapes. Okay, so I've got my big shapes here. Do I want his head kind of tilted, though? I kind of want his head tilted. We'll have his head tilted. No, maybe not. Maybe just straight on. Okay. So I want him occupying the majority of the space. C right in the center? C is. So he's going to be like right in the center. All right. Let's just like, I'm being a little too tight with it already, so I got to just loosen up. All right, I got my robot. He's got his little thing up here. He's going to have his... He's going to be kind of arms like this, or torso, basically. And then he's going to have his arm out in like a superhero pose kind of thing. Now this robot, I need to make buffer than my regular robots. Whenever I do stuff for this client, it's usually kind of a noodly little robot guy. A weak little man, little girly man robot guy. But this robot needs to be super, super strong. Okay. Again, I'm getting in detail before I even have the gesture of the pose, so we'll kind of pull it back a little bit. Let's get the gesture of the pose. So I want his like hand here. Maybe he's got like the Hulk hand kind of thing going on, like the cha. I think that actually might work. And then this hand kind of cocked back, so maybe I'll, just to give it some movement, like tilt his arms. And then this hand's going to be cocked back into a fist. Ta-ta-ta. All right. We're getting there, guys. And then I think now that I got that, maybe his head is down a little more, so there's a little more movement and action. I'll have his head down there, and then I'm going to have this thing. So anyhow, so Supreme Court, I'm going to just blab about this because it's on my mind. They basically ruled that the executive, they kind of undid like the 14th Amendment, pretty much. Like they ruled that the executive is basically able to commit any offense against the law in office, and as long as they can kind of justify it by saying it was part of their executive responsibilities, they can pretty much get away with like not getting charged. Like it's actually legal to charge the president of the United States with a crime committed in office if you hold on a sec, sorry, just thinking here. Thinking and drawing. So it's impossible to charge the executive with a crime if it was committed in doing one of their executive acts, which is wild because technically under this Supreme Court ruling, like, you basically wouldn't have been able to prosecute Nixon. And so Nixon's reason for resigning would just be null. Which is insane, right? That's the insane time we live in. So anyhow, so like last week, so I had a feeling like I knew this last election was a big deal because of that, because it's kind of like laying fertile ground to where if somebody got into the executive office with nefarious intentions, they can basically like get away with murder, which is kind of wild. And I remember watching the fascinating thing about this was at the time I took a gig teaching like a civics class over the summer, and it was really interesting teaching civics and then having this live debate in the Supreme Court where they're going through examples where they're like, well, so say the executive, like, you know, basically like bumps off their political rival, right? Like, can you charge them with that? Because technically they could, you know, say, well, the person was like a threat to the country or something and I was doing my executive duty. anyhow, so that was the big concern of the dissenting members. You know, of the Supreme Court. And so the bizarre thing about this is that, you know, now we're in this really weird position where you have these weird things happening, like an American citizen was wrongfully deposed, like, and kicked out of the country and put into like an El Salvadorian prison, like a gulag kind of thing. And they're a U.S. citizen with like kids and stuff. This has happened a couple times. I think there's a hairdresser too that ended up being deported who wasn't like a member of a gang or anything like that, hadn't been charged with any crimes without a trial. And so when you have scenarios like that, now we're in this weird position where so like the Supreme Court recently, thank goodness, actually ruled against the Trump administration by basically saying like, hey, you know, you kind of can't just, you got to get that guy back. Like, you can't just like take a father and citizen of the country and, you know, had followed the right pathways and stuff and become a naturalized citizen, then just like kick him out of the country and put him in a gulag, like for no reason, like without a crime or a trial. Like, there's the right to due process, like in our Constitution. So it's like you can't really do that. And then I think where this case is currently at is I think that the administration has kind of delayed it by basically making the argument that I can't even remember. I think it's that that a naturalized citizen can be denaturalized or something. Like, you can unnaturalize them if they're basically like supporting, you know, things that they misrepresented when they were naturalized. So this is currently happening. So and keep in mind, there's a lot of wild stuff happening on top of that. But to me, this is a really fascinating one because this is where we could really potentially like lose our democracy. This little showdown that's happening, depending on how it goes down. So here's the thing. So right now, the Supreme Court is kind of like okaying the delay, like they're kind of complying with the delay from the Trump administration, and so there's no tension. But the big fear, I think, most American, if you've been following this stuff, and again, I'm not like a political guy or whatever, I'm just an art dude. But if you've been following this stuff, one of the big fears is because of this executive privilege that's been granted, where they have pretty much like full immunity to commit any crime. And keep in mind, like, I think it was like last week, it's like, it really looks pretty, like almost cut and dry that the president of the United States basically tweeted out and did a rug pull on the entire stock market using tariffs to like drop stocks to like a dirt cheap low, and then basically like say, by the way, you guys should buy stocks now, just to like rig it to get a quick boost so they could pump and dump the the executive of the United States did a pump and dump on but using like rigging the entire stock market, which is tanked, by the way, because of the tariffs and stuff in our country. So we'll see the results of that. I know the U.S. dollar's like value has dropped significantly as well. Anyhow, so here's the tension and the thing that's a little scary that's possibly coming to head. What happens if the Supreme Court, like right now, the Trump administration is kind of playing at complying with the Supreme Court's order, because so far the Supreme Court hasn't really stepped in on a lot of these issues. And there's like a million lawsuits going on because, the Trump administration has just been like testing their power, and like really pushing the boundaries of like what an executive can do. Like, does the executive have the power of the purse? This is like traditionally always been, and constitutionally like is kind of written to be so that, Congress controls, basically the purse strings of the government. That's the biggest power of Congress, right? And so the idea behind that is it would act as like a check and balance against the executive. If the executive, say like wants to get in an armed conflict in another country or something, and the people of the United States don't want that, the power of the purse could basically, like, sure, he can go there, but like to get funding for this thing, he's going to have to this is an interesting robot here. Let me I wonder if I can show you guys. Oh, here's a version of the robot right here. So that's the robot we're drawing. You see that? That's my previous one of my previous illustrations, but we got to buff him up. Anyhow, so the concern is like if the Supreme Court kind of goes to the executive and is like, "Hey, you got to return this U.S. citizen," because there's already been a federal court that did that, and then the Trump administration just kind of ignored the federal court altogether. So it escalated to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court, in a full ruling, like every member of the Supreme Court ruled that basically Trump was out of line and that their administration had to return this guy who's a U.S. citizen who's been deported to like basically like a gulag. So the insane thing is, what happens if Trump never complies? Like right now they're kind of playing like they're complying, but they're like, oh, well, we're looking into this other version because denaturalization, stuff like that. But on the guise of, but we will comply with the courts, right? But what happens if they don't? And this is the big fear I think most rational-minded Americans are having, among with a lot of others, right? But what happens if the Supreme Court kind of puts their foot down and says, no, 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 no. And then, the Trump administration is just like, nope, I don't care. Like, what does the Supreme Court do? Like, what is the... what's the result? Because you can't charge the president with a crime if they're... like, they just gave him, like, full immunity, like, superpower, basically, like, dictatorial power. So, like, what can you do? You can't charge him with a crime, and if you can't charge him with a crime, then how are you going to enforce it? And then if he's the enforcer anyway, like, now you have really hard standing to really... really do anything, which is, it's just wild. It's just a wild scenario. Meanwhile, I don't know, all these people I knew in the U.S. who were, very, very like pro. Hold on a second, I'm checking something. So a lot of people in the U.S. that I know that used to have just for years, been like the no taxation without representation, 1776 type guys. These are people who just like absolutely vehemently oppose taxes, like in general, right? They're very libertarianish types that tend to be like, taxation is theft, that kind of stuff. Like, these are the people on the right that, I used to, hear converse with things like that. now all of a sudden, these people are like really big fans of tariffs, which are coming from the executive branch, and the executive branch doing taxation without going through Congress is like the epitome of like it's literally like one of the reasons we revolted from, uh from the British Empire, it's just wild. It's just so it's literal taxation without representation, and in like insane ways too, like where it's calculated um based on our overall deficit, but not based on actual tariffs that are coming to us. And so we've been doing like really just bizarre things that don't make a lot of like strategic sense unless you're looking at it from a lens of like trying to rig the market to kind of go up and down at your whim in order to profit and get really wealthy. I was having trouble figuring it out. And again, what is it? Like, have you guys heard of the term like the fog of war or whatever? Where it's like, during a conflict, it's hard to get active live reporting because there's so many moving things occurring that the clarity of facts will come into play later on in a conflict usually, because in a live conflict there's so many moving parts that there's kind of a fog over what's actually occurring, and then you have so many actors that are trying to paint a picture, of propaganda and stuff to kind of for the war effort and stuff. So it's really hard for journalists to like get a clear picture of what's happening in a war, right? Until years and years later, where you can look back at it and kind of assess some of the information. Also, it's hard to know the significance of different things when you're in the middle of it, right? Because it's just, hindsight's 2020 kind of stuff. So there's a bit of that happening right now where, a lot of things are happening. There's been like 1 billion executive orders passed since the Orange Man took office, and so it's kind of hard to assess or figure out like what all it all means, But it's fascinating to see the amount of just cult like complicity, like again, like people who years ago, like if there was any politician giving like a tax, or a tariff, they'd be like, this is, like to a lot of these people, it was, years ago, like this was like the epitome of like the worst thing you could do as a politician. And these same people are like all about it now. Like, oh, well, a lot of people who were talking about like the pain of the economy and how horrible it was, and were claiming that like Democrats had really screwed up the entire economy. These same people are like totally comfortable now with like, well, we just have to experience temporary pain. And we're talking about like prices are going to get nuts in this country. Like, where I used to work, my old job did a lot of importing and exporting, mainly importing from China for metal and stuff and products. So the art was made in the U.S., but, a lot of the products and stuff, like a lot of the manufacturing required to kind of make the stuff that my old job made just didn't exist in the U.S. Like, and then the stuff that did exist in the U.S. was just like really low quality, and like had like crazy high MOQs, and so it's like you had to order like millions of stuff just to get the factories locally here to even touch a product, and then when they did, it was like an inferior product. Anyhow, I just imagine that business right now eating 150% tariffs That's just wild. Like how does the business survive that? Like how do you survive just like an overnight like and I'm just thinking about like all American businesses. Like how are they going to survive like an overnight, with no real heads up before doing it, hey, by the way, now your product that you're ordering, and I've been thinking about the comic industry too, like a lot of books are printed in China, especially like really complex packaging and stuff, and toys, and you know, anything that's kind of manufactured, has a lot of components from China. So imagine you're like a business, like a small business or a large business, and overnight you're having to eat the cost of, over double. You're over doubling your expense to get product, right? That's just wild. That's gonna. I mean, I just cannot see a lot of businesses surviving that. And so, anyhow, so I was looking at it. I just couldn't figure out like what is the logic of all this tariff stuff. And then I think it was when I think the orange guy had uh, he had a couple billionaires the day after he like basically did a pump and dump on the market, and he was like, "Hey, guys, now's a good time to buy," right? And he had like billionaires in the Oval Office, and he was just like, "Hey, here's a billionaire friend of mine. They made $3 or $2 billion yesterday." Like, they were bragging about. He was bragging about raising and then tanking the stock market like at a whim, and just kind of pointing out friends of his who had made money on it. And then it dawned on me like maybe that's the whole scheme, like because we do have like a guy in office who doesn't feel shy about doing like a meme coin, which is like a meme coin like of crypto is like that is that's rug pulley behavior. Like that is you are out to scam people and make some money. Like that's pretty much what that whole thing is. So like just trying to kind of figure out like what is the logic behind the behind all this tariffy stuff. And then I realized like, oh, they're like tanking the economy so like stocks get. I mean, again, this is a theory. I don't know. Again, fog of war kind of stuff, right? But it seems like they're tanking the economy so that stocks get super cheap, and then they can just at a whim like make tweets and stuff to kind of boost the stocks for a little bit. Buy in before the tweet, you know. Sell right when you like a little bit after you tweet when you see that little boost. It's just wild, man. Like I never thought I'd see, the actual president of the United States engaging in insider trading. Like that is a even if you're like a huge capitalist, like that's a big no-no. You don't want the executive rigging the entire stock market. Like that's a dangerous path. So anyhow, we're just in weird times, man. Because like, there's people who would have been just livid about that like 4 years ago, and now they're just like, "Yep, let's do it. Let's go for it." You know. And I think there's like on it. To be honest, I think there's a subculture of people in this country who really just want to see like the democracy just completely disappear. And I've been seeing that growing, and I've even written songs about it and stuff. But it's just it's funny because I've read about this kind of thing happening in history in other countries and stuff. So it you know, and you always read that in those historical accounts where it's like I never thought it would happen to us. But so maybe it's cliche to say, but I really never thought it would happen to us. I always thought. I think I had more faith in the common person, in this country. But yeah, it's wild. It's wild out there. But here's the thing. Here's the advantage of my scenario right now. Because I have so many things shifting, I have a completely new career going. I have a million freelance projects I have to work on. I have a graphic novel I have to finish, all of that stuff. That keeps me pretty centered because it's like I can kind of focus on this stuff, but I don't get lost in the sauce because it's like I can't afford. I can kind of casually observe and try to do what I can to try to hopefully if there's any way I can like change things a little bit, move the needle a little bit in this kind of hopeless scenario, then cool. But like otherwise, like what can you do? It's like the rise of like people want like a weird like monarch kind of thing. Like they want a dictator in this country, and it's weird to it's just weird to watch it happen. And then also just like seeing people's like shock when it actually happens, like people who supported it, where they're like, "Wait a minute, now I don't have a job." It's like, yeah, of course not. Now I have to pay more. Yeah, dude. Everything you buy, almost like 90% of everything you buy has some kind of component, from China or another country. There's a great video on YouTube. I can't remember. It was me just talking, okay, guys. I'm working on art while talking about this. But there's a great video that I saw that was like an old special. I can't even remember what the special was or who the guy was. But there was a dude, like a professor guy, like holding up a pencil and talking about the different elements of a pencil and where in the world they were sourced from. And how many different areas of the world had to like really collaborate to make that happen. And kind of work together and kind of make it work just to get a pencil put together, right? Because the wood was like sourced from a different country, and then the metal was sourced from a different country, the graphite was sourced from a different country. So you have all these different elements like being put together just so that you could have a pencil that's affordable, And it's like, imagine all those places, like what the cost of a pencil is going to be if all of those places have a 10% tariff. And keep in mind, like the tariff, it's not like the places pay those, like those get passed on to the customer, which is insane. So it's like, the businesses in the US are going to have to eat that cost. And it's going to be interesting. And I know the thinking is like, hey, that'll be cool because that'll bring back, like manufacturing in our country. But it's like, are we really willing to do like a depression for years we may not recover from, just on the off chance that like it might create like 3 factory jobs here or something? I don't know. It's it's just a strange time. And that's like the least, again, arresting American citizens is kind of a problem, without arrest, without a trial, deporting them to different countries. These are just really strange times, guys. We're in some strange territory, some new territory. And the thing is, you can't charge the president with a crime. That's a new thing. Like that has never been Supreme Court precedent until, last year. And when that came through, I was like, we are in dire trouble, especially if this guy gets in. And this guy got in. Okay, we're at 40 minutes. Hopefully you guys are finding this interesting. I do have, let me see if I can pull it up. Let's see where we're at. Let's see where we're at on our goal, guys. I don't think we've hit it. I kind of don't expect that we will, but it'd be cool if we did. I set a goal in chat. Let me see what we got. You see, if any of you guys are watching, let me know if you can see the goal. But I set a goal in chat, and it's for $5 for the first hour of this stream. And if we hit that goal, I will continue an extra 30 minutes on this stream. So that's the goal. That is on the interwebs right now. I'm going to take a very quick break. We're going to play a trailer. But yeah, if you want to support this channel, consider super chatting. It's always nice. Okay, and I'm going to play a trailer. I'll be right back. And we'll continue drawing our robot. I have like 3 illustrations I have to do. Maybe I'll live stream each one. Who knows? But this one I have to rough out. So I like this pose. This looks like he could be breaking through paper. I'll probably make it a little more dynamic in a second. Let's play a trailer and then we'll get right back to it. So here is, oh my goodness, which trailer to play? You know what? Let's play the old school trailer for Jacob's Apartment, which by the way is like from 3 years ago. So it's going to say 2022. I'll be right back, okay?
Speak clearly, it seems that only in dreams can we be these things we've seen and walk around breathing the I don't know the part to play in this heart of mine. There's dissonant things, they split at the seams.
All right. That was the old school trailer for Jacob's Apartment, which you should consider picking up if you haven't. We're drawing our vintagey robot. I don't like his eyes so much, so we'll figure that out. I might do the glare on his eye a little more in a second, but right now we're just kind of working it out, right? He has these little ball joints, which is kind of cool. But I want to make him a little buffer than he usually is, you know? Just his pose alone is going to make him a little bit stronger looking. Here's going to be his little tubey thing, and that's going to go back. There we go. So, so yeah, it's just weird times, man. There's a an unelected billionaire who is the richest man in the world. I'm just catching, especially for my Canadian people that watch this, just like catching you guys up on the wildness, right? So, and here's the sad part. I was actually a pretty big fan of Tesla, like as a car. Like I thought it was a cool car. And I actually owned a little bit of stock, not a ton. Years ago. And then it was like about maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago that I was like, I'm going to get out of this Tesla stock. Because Musk just seemed like a little too like wild, like online. And so the stock was like super volatile. Like it would shoot up like a bunch and then drop a bunch. So one of the times it shot up a bunch, I sold them all. And it was also timed, you know, around... I think around the time that that I left my art director position. So I was like, well, I could use the extra, cash because, like, full disclosure, like, high school teachers don't get paid as much as art directors. But I love it so much more than I liked art directing. Um, but anyhow, so you know, I didn't quite realize like this guy is like, he's running around, he's doing like Nazi salutes and stuff. Um, and apparently now has the power of the purse as well. Again, like just totally undermining the representative power of the democratic part of our democratic republic. Um, just shuttering things that people voted for. Like people voted for representatives to put, these systems in place, and just killing like our humanitarian aid that we give out to other countries, which is like less than 1% of the GDP of our country, and our country's traditionally been pretty well off. So that, even though that seems like a small amount, is actually a pretty substantial amount, even though it's like a tiny fraction of what we make. It's like a lot of small third world countries and stuff rely on that, and so this like Doge company is like going around just just canceling branches of the government, like not branches, but companies set up by the government. And meanwhile, I think people in America, I think part of why they're able to get away with this is just like the complete lack of understanding of how our government works and what the process of our government looks like, and a lot of these things. And so it's like it's just this wild, like completely bizarre time to be alive in this era. But it's also just like, again, I'm really thankful that I have the art stuff, because it's like the art stuff gets to keep me somewhat sane. I'm trying to kind of move this to where it's a little more dynamic to the different components of this guy. Yeah, so just wild times. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but it's also, I think it's going to be super painful. Like, I think we're going to be owing a lot of money. Like, prices are going to go up, I think, pretty significantly. And the bizarre thing is, again, just seeing this like total complicity with it. Like, we're supporters, they're just like full on like drinking the Kool-Aid. They're just in it for the long haul, like regardless of how much it costs them or costs the country or anything. It's like it's bizarre. All these old principles that these people stood by are just like abandoned at a whim. I want to have this a little less wide there, and then I'm going to have his arm down a little bit. And then we'll kind of get into rendering him out. There we go. Okay. Okay. I can dig this. All right. So we have our rough starting. I'm thinking this will take, not too much time, but we'll kind of see. Let me see where we're at on this kind of stuff. So I don't know if we're going to achieve our goal, chat. I was hoping for a teal $5 super chat. I don't think it's going to happen. It was worth an experiment, though. Okay, so here we go. I want to have... There are 10 minutes left for us to hit our goal, though. So I'm going to put this guy kind of here, and then eventually we're going to have him kind of breaking out of of the system, and then we'll kind of go over this with like another set of stuff. Okay. So I kind of want to... This one I think I'll draw with magenta. I should probably save as well. That would be good. So we're going to kind of do this with magenta. And what I want to do is like basically have this like bursting... where we're going to have, you know, some ripped sections. Oh, I should play you guys a song. Let me play you guys a song. If you guys are tuning in, though, and you're on YouTube, I think the goal is still up there in the chats. Let's see. I'm going to play you guys a song. This is, I finally got back to recording music. Again, I've been crazy busy and delayed and stuff like that, but this is the latest track for the next solo album, unmastered. But I don't know what it's called yet. This track 1. Here it is.
Out of millions of people, we're a dot in the data. The landscape is filled with populations and stratas. But you're more than numbers.
Oh, Corey was asking if this is for a client. Yeah, it is.
You are the best of.
Got a couple I gotta do.
On an album, yeah, mix of all the best songs that were written out of millions of people. I'm a dot in the data. Fact you found me among them makes me feel like it matters. Fractal patterns.
How you doing, Corey? So hopefully you guys like the bass line. I put like a ton of fuzz on the bass during that chorus. Nice. Corey said just finished up grades, getting ready for next semester. That's wild. Yeah, we're in quarter 4.
We are the best.
Gotta get 8 weeks, something like that.
All the best songs that were written out of millions of people. I'm a dot in the data. Fact you found me among them makes me feel like it matters.
And then Maya and I, yeah, we just got our taxes done and paid, so that's good. It was painful. Probably my last year for a while of like owing a lot. Because it's still kind of adjusting for the old amount that I used to make yearly.
tactile caverns, nothing matters. If I could see the light in the road before we explode and erase like smoke. Wish I could see the light in the road before we explode. Don't wanna go it
All right. All right, so that was that. You know what? Maybe I'll play some. I'm gonna play a little bit of. I'll turn the music volume down significantly. But I think in the background I'm gonna play the next No Saboteurs album, which has yet to be released, but we're working on the cover art right now. We're making like a painting and collage. It's pretty cool. So I'll play that in the background, just mildly in the background, you know. And then that way we have some nice vibes, you know, with some music in the background and stuff. Yeah, so that's crazy though. Corey, you guys are on like a weird system there. If you guys like that song though, you know, stay tuned and make sure you're following my art and stuff and music on Spotify. But yeah, that seems like a weird kind of schedule. You guys aren't on 2 semesters, right, Corey? I'm guessing. Okay, so we have him busting through here, trying to kind of get the essential part here. I don't like his chin. I feel like that needs to be corrected to be... There we go. That's much better. So we're gonna just have like some kind of zip lines going here. I want to have some of these things like kind of flying at you. Make it 3-dimensional. Anyhow, so that's been wild. Like our nation's been in a really weird time frame, you know. Like we picked I've heard people joke that we picked the bad timeline, like, you know, in Avengers. Like Doctor Strange ran through, you know, 50 different versions. Oh, cool. Scott said, I've been watching other stuff on YouTube. I didn't know you were streaming. Yeah, you're always welcome to join, Scott, too, if you want to hop in. Corey said, not my favorite. I'm considering going on a 75% contract and shipping 1 semester a year. Interesting. I wouldn't know how that works. Sounds pretty fascinating, though. I'll tell you guys, like, a band that I recently discovered. There's this band called The Sound. It is amazing. I think there's a documentary about the singer, because I think he, like, offed himself. But if you're into, like, The Cure or, like, Joy Division, early Cure, or the Doors, or the Violent Femmes. It's like, it's just so good. Yeah. So a good intro to it. I can't play it because it's copywritten music, but Scott said, "Awesome, Robert." Awesome. I don't think we made our chat goal. Let's see here. Let me try another goal. Let's try one super chat. I'm going to set the timer for another 45 minutes, and how I'll celebrate, let's see, what would I do if we hit that? I'm going to do the same thing. 30 minutes extra of streaming. And we'll set that start goal. There is a goal up there, guys, just in case. Okay, what did Corey say? He said 75% contract. I teach 26 credits a year instead of 36. Basically 2 slightly heavier semesters instead of 3. A lot of time off. That sounds cool. The older I get, the more I'm convinced that, you know, I've had titles now, you know, that are like, you know, you kind of work, and you guys have too, but you work really hard in your youth to get like titles and recognition and maybe some laurels under your name, or get in some design annuals, get like some sexy looking clients on your client list. And all kind of in this weird capitalistic push to like make more and more money, you know, just, you know, because that's the purpose of life, right? Is just make tons of money. The older I get, the more I'm like, I mean, clearly I'm doing this with my life, but it's like, I think there are definite things that are better than money, and I think in what you're describing, Corey, it's like I'd take the financial hit for the extra time, because that's something you can't buy back. You can't buy back time. You know what I mean? 25% cut in pay. I'd say that's a worthwhile cut. Because why are you working? You know, that's what I think. Is like, I don't know. Then again, you may not want to take advice from me, because we are not doing great financially right now. But I'm a lot happier. So take with that what you will. But I will say, I very much think that you need to, well, not you, but I need to, in my life, like, really consider what I'm giving away. Because it's like, when you sit down and think about it, like, why am I working, right? You're working generally so that you can afford to have time to do the thing, or spend time with your family, or whatever it is that you're working toward. But if your work starts dragging you from the whole reason you're working, it's like, that to me might be a good time to kind of consider other options. And of course, like, the primary reason you're working is to eat and, you know, provide for your family and stuff like that, you know. But if you have those needs fulfilled, maybe you make a little less for a little more happiness and a little more of that time. That's another reason you're working, you know. I don't know. Give or take that with a grain of salt, my dude. But the older I get, the more I'm like, yeah, the extra money, who cares? I mean, money's nice, but, you know, I don't know. What am I saying, guys? Am I even making sense? I don't know if I'm even making sense. I'm liking how this guy's coming out. I'm going to draw one more pass over him. Gosh, guys, I said pass over. When I was a kid, Passover, that whole story of Passover, like, freaked me the hell out. Like, it was one of the scariest things in the world. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's pretty much like there's a curse put on the Pharaoh or whatever, where the firstborn children. And keep in mind, when I first hear this, I am a young child. There's going to be a plague that basically kills off all the firstborn children unless they put like the blood of a lamb on their doorway. And so I remember as a kid having like nightmares about, you know, these bloody doorways. It's a scary prospect, man. And the angel of death, like, I don't know. That was a scary one as a kid. I guess still, as an adult, that's a pretty scary one. The idea of this, like, angel of death coming and passing houses and killing children. A little creepy. Alright. Okay, guys. We're gonna play another trailer. Chat goal is in the chat on YouTube. Let's see here. Play a trailer and then I'll be right back. What trailer to play? Let's play Kids Say Kemble.
We know the Georgia kids say the craziest thing.
So, little Susie, do you have any brothers or sisters? I understand you're in 3rd grade. How do you like that? Do you like your teacher? You like to do a lot of fun things at school? You got any hobbies, Susie? Any things you like to do when you're not in school? I hear you like to read.
Well, right now I'm reading 2 stories written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It grapples with faith and mental illness. It's ultimately a story about redemption. It's a savage piece of writing. Also, I just finished up Jacob's Apartment, another one by Kemble. Jacob's Apartment weaves together elements of spiritualism and relationship dynamics, as well as atheism. And all the while it deals with abandonment and loyalty. It's a fierce, fierce read.
Do you like ponies?
I just realized my music was still playing in the background. Let's put on a different track. This is track 2 in the very, very subtle background. Hopefully, let me know if the music's distracting you guys. I think it's nice to have a little bit of jams while we're working. This is track 2 by No Saboteurs of our yet-to-be-released album. And I'm playing it really low so that I can kind of chat and babble over. Okay, so a couple things to kind of get going. We got to kind of solidify our line work. I got to fix these eyes and kind of figure out what I want to do with the eyes. Generally, this robot has much smaller eyes. I don't like the arc being that small, so I think I'm going to do... So one of the reasons I'll sketch with like multiple colors is just to kind of work this out a little better. Can I kind of do that in a way that doesn't look too much? Give him some eyebrows, kind of eyebrows. I remember as a kid I was obsessed with Spawn, and there's a character in Spawn named Violator. And his eyes are kind of like this. I don't like the... Okay. I need to be a little more artistic here, guys. This is the problem of working at night, is like, your brain is just kind of there. How are you doing, Scott? What are you working on, my dude? How's your Kickstarter going? If you guys haven't yet, Mr. Cirkland, Scott Cirkland, is running a Kickstarter. I think it's under youngandthedead.com. Am I getting that right, Scott? Anyhow, I backed it. I ended up getting the graphic novel because he's finished his series. It's a really cool comic that's like kids versus zombies. And I've known Scott for many years, and he has been carving away like a craftsman in his art studio, working on this thing, cooking it up, and finally has finished the entire story arc of Young and the Dead. So it's a graphic novel that you can pick up. I opted to get the graphic novel in the last issue, and I'm excited because it's going to wrap up the story. A little sad because it's going to wrap up the story too. I'm curious how Scott's doing with that. And then the music I have playing in the background right now is No Saboteurs, my band. The unreleased album that we're currently working on the art for. And we'll probably release in a couple months. We might even be pressing a vinyl of it, guys. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in possibly owning. For our 3 fans. Those fans being me, Josh, the other guy in the band, and Jake, the drummer. He did such a killer job on the drums on this album. Like, we had like digital drums temporarily on like all of the songs. We wrote them all together, and then we like sent them to our drummer, and we're like, you need to learn this in a month. And he hit the studio, and in 2 days, 2 studio sessions, he recorded all, I think, 13 tracks. It was insane to, in a month, learn 13 songs. And it's not, generally in songs, like the drums are crafted before, but for him to like have to studio drummer it, that was pretty impressive. Okay, I'm gonna put on another song, because why not? It's fun. Let me know if the music's distracting. Okay, this is our weird country song. You can probably barely hear it, which is the point. I want to kind of talk about stuff. Let's talk about stuff, guys. I don't like this tangent here. That's gonna bug the heck out of me. And I know this is just a rough, but that tangent was a problem. Okay. Where am I going to have my light source? Is it going to be from that side or from that side? I think it makes more sense to have it from the top right. That's usually where I default. Wait, we're not adding... Oh, I want to get into shading because shading's fun. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I'm not adding shading yet. We're just doing our line art. Kind of polishing up our robot dude. There's another tangent there too. I'm like the tangent police, guys. Looking out for them tangents. I gotta say, taxes sucked this year though. And it'll be the last year I think we owe. I think next year we're gonna get a return probably. Which I haven't gotten a tax return in like 7 years or 8 years. I don't know. It's been a long time, maybe 10 years since getting a tax return. So that'll be interesting to be in that scenario. Because even what we owed, you know, considering I got a pretty big check from my the place I left. That kind of floated us for a little bit while I was figuring out career stuff. There we go. Alright, we're getting there, guys. I might brew some coffee, like, once I finish this illustration so that I can kind of power through and maybe finish one more. Or, you know, depending, if we hit our goal, you know, maybe I'll do one more tonight, you know? I know that I had to do some revisions for this client, so tonight there's a couple things I gotta do. One is I gotta write an invoice for the one that we finally finished. Number 2, is another revised one. There's a new one too that I have to do, but another revised one, which is an ant one I might have been working on during a stream once. The one beautiful thing about this week, though, is this whole week, all I have is, I have homework for sure for school, but the nice, for college, you know, the college classes that I'm taking. But we're on spring break for the school that I'm attending as a student. And so all I have to worry about this week is catching up on homework and personal projects and freelance. I might even be able to carve at the graphic novel a little bit, which is great because that has been piling up in the background, the need to do the graphic novel. Because if you guys have been following this, I'm working on a graphic novel about Elizabeth Barrett Browning called Not Death But Love, and I have like 100-ish pages I gotta get done for that. And most of that I'm going to be doing over the summer like a lunatic. So probably live streaming while I do those. Let's see where we're at. This actually isn't too bad. It's going to be a lot more fun when we add shadow. Very simplified robot here, guys. I'm always jealous of artists that are quick, though. I'm not a quick artist. By the way, today I listened to the DuckTales theme song. And I was like, that was a banger, dude. That was a great theme song. Okay, let's listen to track 4. This one's really pretty. Yeah, that was a banger of a cartoon theme song. I feel like the Disney afternoon type, you know, cartoon theme song is just not really a thing anymore. Like, do they even have? Because most shows, and actually this is probably a good move, but most shows have gone the route of like Netflix or whatever, where they have very short credit sequences, if even credit sequences at the beginning. But you rarely have a song that's about the title of the thing, you know? So I'm wondering, like, what the modern generation, like, what's the jingles that are gonna be programmed into their brains? Because I think everyone in my age range, or a little bit lower, has just like a million different theme song and advertising jingles that are just in our subconscious. Subconscious? You know, it's our conscience that's... Anyhow, subconscious. I didn't know I was capable of saying that one wrong. Okay. We're gonna get through this robot, guys. Alright, we're getting there, guys. His eyes are usually a little smaller. That makes me a little happier there. Oh, my friend Robbie, who does all the mastering and stuff for my music, he has a band called Default American, and they just released like 3 albums. I would recommend listening to them. They're really cool on Spotify. And Robbie is just a really incredibly cool dude. He's like one of those guys who just supports artists regardless. If you're like a musician in this area and you're making something, he'll be a giant cheerleader for your project, even if like 4 people care. He is like one of the people who cares, you know? And just kind of an incredible dude. So if you want to listen to some new jams, Default American, pretty good. Let's see here. Just kind of rock and roll, you know? We're getting there, guys. I'm almost done. Corey was talking about the modern jingles the kids get is going to be TikToks and Reels. Oh, let me try to put on another song here, guys. We're having fun, hanging out, making art. Hopefully you guys are working on stuff. We're halfway through that No Saboteurs album. Alright, here we go. So, we've got this kind of working. And we got this this leg thing going. So I don't know if I've told you guys, but I now watch sports, just baseball. And I gotta say, today was not a fun day as a Dodger fan. We got like destroyed by Chicago Yesterday was the worst. My buddy, who actually is the other member in my band, went to see the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium for that game yesterday, where we played the Cubs, and it was like, I think we got beat like 16-0 from what I recall. It could have been a bigger number. But just goes to show you, like, you can be one of the strongest teams in the world or people in the world, and you can get rocked. You know? I think one of the fun things about humans is our ability to kind of do pretty incredible, cool things, even if they're stupid things. Like if they're like, hey, how about we take this stick and we'll make some rules about it and like pay people like extravagant amounts of money to like swing it at a round object, try to lob it across in a coliseum that we'll build for it, you know? I used to like hate that about sports, but now I kind of admire the fact that like we as humans are just such interesting creatures in the fact that we even do such an absurd thing, you know? You don't tend to see animals just like cruising around, you know, doing that. Like they'll play games, but they don't. We're just very unique in the way we treat games. In our simulated wars or whatever. Alright, so that works. I don't like this leg. This foot is really off, so we're gonna fix that. I was trying to get all sneaky there with my my angle of that perspective, and then looking at it, it's like so off. Okay. There we go. Much better. Much better. Alright. Okay. I think we're in pretty good spot. Okay, so I'm going to save this, disappear for a second. Let's pause this music and let's put on Philip Chandler's trailer. I'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Phil Chandler. I'm a freelance artist, illustrator, and cartoonist. Today, though, however, I want to tell you about a graphic novel I picked up recently called Jacob's Apartment. This book was both written and beautifully illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It is the story of a doomed romance that causes the main character to question his beliefs and his faith, while he's also going through other tragedies in his life. Every page has been illustrated by hand and digitally colored with painstaking detail. It is an emotional story that causes you to think and even question things in your own life. And while the story is a tragedy, it is one that I was completely entertained by and I highly recommend. You can currently find this on Amazon or even check in with your local bookstore and see if you can order it. And while you're at it, you can also check out my Instagram at Phil Chandler Arts and also my YouTube channel by the same name, Phil Chandler Arts. And go buy Jacob's Apartment.
All right, just to make things more fun, I might be like, thank you, Philip. And now let's get back to the program. Anyhow, thank you to Philip for making that. That was pretty cool. All right, let's do... You know what? I don't need to redraw or remake the wheel here. That's pretty good, what I've got here. So I just need to clean up a couple of the lines. And then we'll kind of clean up a couple of these lines. And then I think because this is a rough, like once I add shadow and light and stuff, that's going to work pretty effectively for a base to like build an eventual vector illustration over. Getting rid of some tangents and overlap. Okay, that worked pretty well. Now we're going to just get rid of some of these things. Draw the end of this. Cool. All right, now I'm going to turn this to black. And then now we're in pretty good standing. Now I just need to really solidify those erases. So let's get in there and really work out that that white stuff over the Excel, so it really looks like it's breaking that Excel form. I have to say, like, there are times where there's definitely been times in my life, I think this happens to all creatives, right? Where, you know, especially like with the feast and famine of freelance, you know, I remember a few years, my first few years being full-time freelance, where I was like, why did I pick this career? Like, I could have gone into any career that pays better, you know, that kind of stuff. You have moments like that, okay? They're going to come and go. I think it happens to everybody in life, regardless of whatever career they pick, right? Like, you're just going to have moments of doubt where you're like, dude, maybe I went down the wrong path and now I'm like stuck here, right? Anyhow, this has a connection to what I'm drawing. Then I have to do an Excel form every once in a while, and I'm like, there are people who this is all they do all day. They have to do Excel form. And I'm reminded, like, of how much I love what I do. Like, I don't have to do that many Excel forms. Especially now that I'm not art directing. The amount of Excel sheets that I have had to touch are like almost close to minimum, which is kind of awesome. So there's moments like that where I'm like, okay, we have a pretty cool gig. It's not so bad. All right, I need to pull the lighter shade value. Okay. And then I'm going to do, we'll work from dark to light. So we'll do our darker shade value too. Let's get that darker shade value. And we're just going to shade this puppy up. Wait, should I, you know what I should do? I was skipping a step. Let's do some light and shadow. Okay, so real quick shadow tones on this guy, and then we'll be done with him, which is pretty cool. All right. And I have the light kind of coming from up top. Up top, my brother. All right. Here we go, and then we'll do this. And then usually this guy has a pretty clear, you know, line of roundness. All right, that works. And then we'll just kind of shade it up. He's going to have a clear shadow here where his head is. Do 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 do. Kind of simplified, you know, but I like drawing these retro robots a lot because they're fun. Very simple shapes, but kind of awesome. I am kind of curious, like, I haven't done an action comic. I don't think I've ever done an action comic, which is funny because like they're so associated with, you know, comics are very associated with action. It'd be interesting to try an action comic. Harder and easier. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I think the hard part would be you really need dynamic poses, like crazy dynamic poses. The nice part is there's so much, like so many resources out there for like that, you know, just thousands and thousands of cartoonists have built up over the years of dynamic poses. So you're kind of, I don't know. Anyhow, it's an interesting kind of scenario, but I've always been kind of curious about that because I've never done an action comic. All right, guys. But I am a little bound with this guy, with this robot, because he's their robot. This will be easy. Like the nice thing about blocking in the shading this way is like when I go to like really flattening out the shading, it's going to be an easier way to kind of figure out what to have as solid black, right? Oh, I forgot we had some nice music playing in the background, and then I botched it, stopped playing it. Let's play. What was that? Let's play a little more. This one's called Neutrino's Big Adventure. I think it's just music, which is kind of pretty. Actually, this is one I could probably loop for a little bit in the background. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. But this is like nice background music. Maybe this will be background music on our stream or whatever. How's your comic coming, Corey? Hopefully it's coming along good. Oh, man, I completely, it's funny, I've been talking about stuff and I completely forgot we got a new dog. He's super cute. His name's Georgie, and he's like mostly my sister-in-law's dog because her last dog passed away last year, which was really sad. He was really cute. His name was Scott. But yeah, so they went to a shelter and found a sweet little like part Chihuahua, part, I don't know. He's definitely got some terrier. He's spotted. He's very cute. And he's very snuggly, and at least so far really likes naps and belly rubs. So, which is what you want in a dog, you know? But he's really sweet. So that was very distracting this weekend. Because having a new cute little puppy around is, needless to say, kind of a distraction, but a welcome one. I am definitely a dog person. Corey said, I don't know, man, there's something really satisfying about putting together a killer Excel sheet. I don't feel you on that, Corey, but I think you're more Excel-minded than I am. Because you're a very, like, meticulous and planned type person. I'm not that guy. I'm not the Excel guy. What were things you guys? Because I was talking about the, Passover, shadow of death, like nightmares I used to have as a kid. Angel of death. What were some nightmares you guys used to have as children? I know there's the standard one that like everyone's had, which is the, I overslept and missed my test. I think that's one of the most common ones, It's always interesting to hear, though, what people's crazy nightmares or dreams were when they were kids. And even persist to this day, It's interesting. Corey said, to my recollection, I've never had a nightmare. That's insane. Can't believe you've never had a nightmare. The best ones are the ones that become like action movies, like if you have lucid dreaming during like a nightmare, it can be really fun. Because you're like maybe being chased by monsters or something, and then suddenly you realize you have an agency, and you're like, I would like, to be able to walk through walls or whatever, and suddenly you can walk. It's pretty cool. Lucid dreaming's. I wish there was a way to like pre-make lucid dreaming. I think that's what it's called, lucid dreaming, where you get. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I think that's where you like realize you're dreaming and you can kind of control your dream, like Matrix style. It's pretty cool. Hey, look at that. That's getting pretty... It's kind of working. We're getting there, guys. Alright, now I need another shadow. And then we'll add some layers of tone and value. Alright, this is going to kind of do it for the rough, I think. So now I just need to add the tones of color now, which I can do now. I was almost skipping that step before. So let's try adding that tone of color. Alright, here we go. I'm going to start with my darkest tone and then we'll work our way up. Okay. So this needs to be lighter. Let's alternate between that and white. Here we go. I know this is going to be white as well. There we go. All right. Got our robot coming together for our illustration. Again, this is a rough for a client. The final will probably take about 6 hours, maybe 5 hours, maybe 4 hours, because I have a nice rough, so it shouldn't take an incredible amount of time. But you get so much done in the rough stage, at least with this client I do. And it ends up making the secondary stage go pretty quick. This I want to have as that lighter shade. Hey, look at that. And then I want to have these little torn off parts as like a lighter shade of... Yeah, we'll kind of do that. And then I'll gradually work some white over it too. I think this is kind of working. What do you guys think? Does it look like a robot busting through an Excel sheet? Hopefully. All right. There's my robot busting it outside of an Excel sheet. All right, guys. We have finished. I'm gonna call it. Oh, Corey said he's gonna bail. Perfect timing. I'm gonna actually call it on the stream. We didn't hit our goal. That's okay. But I'm going to call it, and then I will probably start another live stream in maybe like 20 minutes ish. And we'll work on another illustration together. But I'm happy with how this came out. I actually think it looks pretty good. It's kind of doing the work that it needs to do. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Scott said, "Have a good night, Josh." Yeah, I will. If you're around like 1, I'll be back. I'll be back at weird hours. But we got, I think, let me see, 2 or 3 of these that I got to do left. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you haven't yet, consider buying Jacob's Apartment or 2 Stories, my 2 graphic novels. And also consider checking out my music and albums and stuff on Spotify. Let me go here. All right, I will see you guys on the next live stream. Thanks for tuning in, and appreciate it. And if you haven't hit that bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live, maybe hit like on the stream. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's live stream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.